Hi there, this is Floyd Pinto. I just wanted to present some mapping methods I used for a project for a Canadian Hydrographic Service. So the project I was mapping was the Atlantic Fishing Regulations from 1985. This here is the website. I specifically focused on Schedule 8, that is this one right here. The Atlantic Fishing Regulations essentially specify certain zones or parts of the ocean that you can or cannot fish in, and at what points of the year, and at what specific fish, and with what length of vessel. So there's multiple attributes, and there's a temporal factor as well. Um, so just looking at Schedule 8 here, um, we have items. Items are basically zones or areas in the ocean. We have 18 items here in total. And we have multiple attributes. This area here is just a definition of the area, the geographic definition. So the attributes we really have are vessel length and close time. And I'm going to show how I went about mapping multiple attributes. So here's my first map. So the technique I used here to show multiple attributes was using a mouse hover and a mouse click. So you can see as I hover over, oh, these are the 18 zones. You can see they're all labeled. You can see as I hover over the different zones, it shows the close time when that zone is closed for fishing. June 1st to December 31st here. This is just hovering over everything. You can see now once I click, it changes the attribute type now to vessel length. So what vessel length is that area closed off to? A design challenge with this is that when you're hovering, it can be difficult, especially when you're zoomed out. It can be difficult to see at what point you're changing zones. Right here, I'm on zone 12, now zone 13. If you're in an area in between, it's a bit hard to tell. So one thing I developed to make that differentiation easier was I just changed the color of the pop-up so you can tell when you're on different shapes now a little bit more easily. Another thing I came up with was when you're on top of a shape, again, to show that you change shapes or you're now hovering over a different shape, I just got the shape to highlight. And again, the click still works to show attribute data. The next thing I want to focus on is another design challenge. So if we look at Schedule 8, pretty much every item has its own geographic area, with the exception of item 8 and 9 and 10 and 11. If we look at item 9, for example, the geographic area is the exact same that populates item 8. And the same for item 11. It's the same geographic zone, which is item 10, which makes mapping a challenge because, for example, if you can see here, you can see behind the label 11, it's saying 10. So 10 and 11 are taking up the exact same zone, and the same for 8 and 9. So you got to ask yourself, how exactly is the user supposed to see that there are two zones there? And not only that, how will they see the attribute within those two zones? So this is the way I came up with dealing with that. So I have a color coding here. It basically shows, here's a legend. It shows that the dark polygons are double feature zones. and click to switch between the zones, and everything light is just a normal zone. So if we hover over normal zone, it shows us all attribute data. That's another thing. Um, I had to bunch all attribute data together into one box instead of, as in my prior map here, I was showing one type of attribute with a hover, which was the close time, and then when I clicked, it would switch to a different attribute type, which was vessel length. The reason I couldn't do that here was because the click now has different functionality. So right now I'm here, I'm in item 8, you can see that, and all the attributes are listed, the close time and vessel length. But when I click, it switches to item 9, and again, you can see all the attribute data now for this new item. Um, so the design of the click has changed now from showing multiple attributes to instead switching between items which take up this exact same geographic location. Um, so that's how I dealt with that problem there. The next thing I'm going to show you, so right now the way I'm showing temporal data is just in plain text. It just says close time, June 1st to December 31st. Another way I have chosen to display temporal data is through animation. So here is my first example of that. You can see here that the shapes, the different items and zones are getting blacked out as they're closed. Up here, we have a progress bar, and you can see the dates changing live uh, to show which month you're in or which time of month, and if that zone will be closed off or not during that month. You can pause the animation if you want to see specifically what's going on at that month, what's closed off, what's not closed off. You can manually control your track bar as well. This track bar is a little glitchy because I didn't code everything in JavaScript using Carto's API, but Carto did provide their own track bar, which works a lot more smoothly. I'll just demo that one really quick. So here again, we have our animations, and I can pause and move my track bar to any set time value and observe the data for that specific time period. I'm going to go back to my specific map. So in this map, the zones are getting blacked out when they're closed. That's one way of designing it. I also have an alternate way, which is right here, where the zones disappear instead, whichever you think is more usable. Another difference in design would be in this map, the date is shown, the dates are shown live as the metric to measure time. And in this map, the month is shown as a number instead, going 1 to 12. Another feature, the duration bar here, you can control how compressed you want the animation if you want to loop through it faster or quicker. And the last thing I want to show you would be there's a search bar also. If you want to drop down a point, see if your point is within one of the zones, for example, to see, if where you plan to fish happens to be in a restricted area. You can drop down multiple points to look for your sail plan. An interesting idea would be to implement some more functionality into the search bar to look up types of fish or to look up restrictions like vessel types or times of year. So I think this a lot more work can be done with the search bar. And because there are so many schedules in the Atlantic fishing regulations, this particular one I focused on is just Schedule 8. Another design challenge would be how to show so much different data on a map, especially when many of these zones will overlap. And the idea I got here was just a really simple checkboxes essentially. So you have the different kinds of fish that you want to fish, each is from a different schedule, and just unclick, select, or deselect whichever you wish, and you can see the map is getting updated live. Now, although my map says all these different fish, technically this is just Schedule 8, so it's only really herring. This is just for demonstration purposes. Okay, that is everything for temporal maps and using clicks and hovers and legends to define not only different attributes, but switch between different polygons as well.